Minimalism is not disappearing for summer 2026. It is getting softer, longer, and much more intelligent. And that matters because a lot of women are still dressing in a version of minimalism that looks clean on paper, but slightly empty in real life. The outfit is simple. The colors are safe. The pieces are expensive enough, and yet something about it feels flat. That is because minimalism has shifted. Looking through the summer 2026 runways, one thing becomes very clear very quickly. Designers are still giving us restraint, still giving us calm, still giving us polish, but not in that old stiff, overly plain way. Now it is more relaxed, more fluid, more wearable, and almost every strong minimalist look has one thing that stops it from feeling boring. A longer line, a softer trouser, a sharper shoulder, a touch of movement, or one detail that gives the outfit a point of view. So in this video, I want to show you what minimalism actually looks like in 2026. Not lifeless basics, not beige for the sake of beige, but what I would call relaxed minimalism. The version that feels modern, expensive, and much more right for where fashion is going now. And once you see the pattern, you will also see why some minimalist outfits suddenly look dated, while others look incredibly current with almost no effort at all. Minimalism is becoming softer, longer, and more fluid. What I notice first is that minimalism in summer 2026 is no longer trying to look strict. It is still clean. It is still calm. It is still restrained. But it is much less rigid than before. For a while, minimalist dressing often came with a certain kind of pressure. The lines felt sharper. The outfits felt more controlled. Everything had to sit in exactly the right place. And sometimes that made minimalism look polished, yes, but also a little cold, a little severe, and in real life, sometimes a little flat. A quick pause. If you want to make your neutrals look richer and less flat, download my free neutrals upgrade checklist below. Now the mood is changing. The line is getting longer, the silhouette is loosening, the fabrics are moving more. And instead of forcing the body into a hard, perfect shape, these outfits seem to move with it. That is a very important shift. Because once minimalism becomes softer, it also becomes more wearable. It becomes easier to live in. It becomes less about performing taste and more about looking quietly sure of yourself. And you can really see that in the silhouettes. The dresses are longer and more fluid. The tailoring is still sharp but not aggressive. The trousers fall more easily through the leg. The shapes skim rather than grip. Even when the palette stays very restrained, the outfit never feels static because there is always some sense of movement inside it. That is what makes this version feel more current. It is not minimalism that stands still, it is minimalism that breathes. And that is also why some older minimalist outfits suddenly start to feel slightly off. Not because they are simple, not because they are neutral, but because they feel too held in place, too cropped, too stiff, too exact, too dependent on perfection. Summer 2026 minimalism is not really asking for perfection. It is asking for flow, not sloppy flow, not shapelessness, not oversized everything. There is still control here, but it is a gentler control. The outfit still has direction. It still has discipline. It still has elegance. It just gets there in a calmer way. And I think that is one of the most useful things to understand about this season, especially if you love simple dressing but have started to feel that your outfits look a little too plain or a little too severe or somehow less modern than they used to. Because often the fix is not to abandon minimalism. The fix is to soften it. Lengthen the line a little. Let the fabric move a little more. Choose silhouettes that follow the body instead of fighting it. Keep the restraint, but remove the rigidity. That is where this new version starts to look expensive. It does not look like you tried harder. It looks like you chose better. And once you see that, the whole season starts to make much more sense. Because the first real message of summer 2026 is this. Minimalism is still here, but it no longer wants to feel hard. It wants to feel long, fluid, and much more relaxed in the way it carries itself. So the first shift is very clear. Minimalism is not disappearing. It is simply becoming softer, longer, and much more fluid than the older version. Because the stronger version of minimalism in 2026 almost always has one thing that sharpens it, one thing that wakes it up, one thing that gives it direction, one thing that stops the outfit from feeling too polite or too predictable. Sometimes it is a stronger shoulder. Sometimes it is a very clean black and white contrast. Sometimes it is a single bright accent, like a red bag, a bold accessory, or one sharper line inside an otherwise quiet look. For instance, Bottega Veneta makes minimalism feel softer and more playful. The color story stays controlled, but the shapes loosen. You start to see volume, cocooning, and these slightly unusual proportions that stop the outfit from feeling too predictable. While Calvin Klein collection brings in that very clean, almost 90s simplicity. But it does not feel dated. What keeps it modern is the length, the calm palette, and the fact that the clothes never feel overworked. What becomes clear next is that minimalism in summer 2026 is not trying to disappear completely. It is still reduced, still very edited, still calm, but it is no longer satisfied with being plain. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons some minimalist outfits now look so current, while others look a little empty. Sometimes it is a pendant, a contrast trim, a long jacket, a narrow column of dark color, or even a cleaner sporty shoe that changes the mood of the whole outfit. And that is important because this is where minimalism really starts to separate itself from basic dressing. Basic dressing can be simple, but often it just looks unfinished. This new minimalism is also simple, but it does not look unfinished. It looks decided. That is the difference. You can really see it in the way these outfits are built. The palette is restrained. The shapes are clean. There are not too many layers. There is not too much styling. But there is usually one element carrying a bit more force. That one element gives the look tension. And tension is exactly what many older minimalist outfits were missing. They were clean, neutral, and tasteful. But sometimes they had no real center of gravity. Now that is changing. Minimalism in 2026 still wants restraint, but it no longer wants emptiness. It wants precision, a small amount of contrast, a small amount of personality, a small amount of edge. Not enough to turn the outfit into a statement, just enough to stop it from fading away. And I think this is a very useful lesson, especially for women who naturally prefer simple dressing. Because when simple dressing stops working, the instinct is often to add more accessories, more layers, more trend pieces, more decoration. But that is usually not the best fix. Very often the better fix is just one stronger detail. One cleaner jacket, one sharper bag, one longer pendant, one better contrast, one more directional shape. That is enough. And that is what makes this season feel so intelligent. The outfits are not trying to impress you with quantity. They are trying to guide the eye more carefully. That is what keeps the outfit modern. Because minimalism in summer 2026 is not about removing everything. It is about removing almost everything and then keeping the one thing that matters. That is a much stronger way to dress. It feels more confident, more urban, more current. A completely plain outfit can disappear. But an outfit that is still simple and has one sharper detail stays with you. That is why this shift matters so much. Minimalism is not becoming louder, it is becoming more intentional. The look is still reduced, but now it usually has one detail that gives it structure, energy, or mood. And once you start noticing that, it becomes much easier to understand why some minimalist outfits suddenly look expensive and modern, while others, even with beautiful basics, still feel slightly flat. Because now the question is not just, is the outfit simple? The real question is, what is giving this simplicity its point of view? So the second shift is just as important. Minimalism in 2026 is no longer trying to be invisible. It is still calm and reduced, but now it almost always needs one sharper detail that makes the whole look feel intentional. There is also a sportier side to this trend. The silhouettes stay simple, but they loosen up. A clean white dress, an easy trouser, one bright accent. Suddenly, minimalism feels much more effortless and alive. Max Mara. This is where minimalism starts to feel very relevant for real wardrobes. The palette is neutral, the tailoring is clean, and the outfit looks expensive not because it is complicated, but because everything is controlled. And then, on the more fluid end, minimalism becomes almost effortless again. The shapes are loose, the fabrics move, and the outfit still feels clean even when it becomes softer and more relaxed. And once you see that sharper detail showing up again and again, the next thing becomes even clearer. Minimalism in 2026 is becoming more sensual too, but in a much quieter way. What also becomes very clear on the summer 2026 runways is that minimalism is getting more sensual, but not in a loud way, not in a heavily styled way, and definitely not in a decorative way. It is a much quieter kind of sensuality than that. And I think that matters because this is another reason the new minimalism feels more modern than the older version. For a while, minimalist dressing often leaned so hard into restraint that it almost erased the body completely. Everything was clean. Everything was controlled. Everything was polished. But sometimes it also felt a little distant. Now that distance is softening, you start to see longer dresses that skim the body more softly, cleaner halter shapes, a deeper neckline, a shoulder left bare, a dress that moves when the woman moves, a column of black or ivory that feels quiet but still unmistakably feminine. That is a very important shift because the outfit is still reduced, still very edited, still minimal. But now it is not afraid of presence. Minimalism is no longer trying to prove that it is serious by removing all sensuality from the look. Instead, it is allowing a little more softness, a little more curve, a little more skin, a little more movement. Not enough to make the outfit feel exposed, just enough to make it feel alive. And that is exactly why this version looks so much richer, because when minimalism becomes too rigid, it can start to feel almost theoretical. Beautiful, yes, tasteful, yes, but a little detached from real life. This new version feels more human than that. A long knit shape, a very clean black gown, an ivory dress that falls rather than clings, a sharp suit worn with a slightly more open neckline, a long line that follows the body without squeezing it. All of that creates a very different emotional effect. The outfit still feels intelligent, still controlled, still expensive, but it also feels easier to inhabit. And that is the real point. This is not minimalism trying to be sexy in an obvious way. It is minimalism allowing the body back into the conversation. And that is a much subtler thing. You do not need embellishment for that. You do not need trend tricks for that. You do not need excessive styling for that. Sometimes all you need is a cleaner neckline, a dress that moves more, a longer vertical line, a fabric that falls instead of holding, a silhouette that feels calm but still unmistakably feminine. That is enough. And once you notice that, you begin to understand why the new minimalism feels so different from the old version. It is not just calmer, it is warmer, more embodied, more aware of the woman inside the clothes. That is why it feels modern. Because minimalism in summer 2026 is not trying to remove femininity, it is trying to refine it. So the third shift is this. Minimalism in 2026 is becoming more sensual, but in a much quieter way. Less decoration, less performance, and much more elegance through line, movement, and body awareness. The next shift is just as important because summer 2026 minimalism is not only becoming softer and more sensual, it is also becoming much more practical. And I do not mean boring. I mean that a lot of the strongest looks this season feel as though they could actually be lived in. That is a huge part of what makes this moment different. Because older versions of minimalism often had a slightly untouchable quality. They looked beautiful in photos. They looked very polished on the runway. But in real life, they could feel a little too pure, a little too precious, or simply too far removed from the way women actually move through the day. Now that is changing too. You start to see cleaner shirt shapes, utility references, sharper cottons, softer jumpsuits, long practical coats, relaxed trousers, more sandals, loafers, boots, and flatter shoes. Even denim begins to sit more naturally inside the minimalist wardrobe. That is very important, because once minimalism starts borrowing from utility, it becomes much more grounded. It still looks elegant, still very edited, still intentional, but now it also looks believable. And that makes the whole trend much more powerful. Because the woman wearing it no longer looks like she dressed only for the image. She looks like she dressed for life, but with taste, and that balance is exactly where a lot of modern elegance is heading now. Not toward complication, not toward obvious luxury signals, but toward clothes that feel useful, calm, and strong at the same time. You can really see that in the silhouettes. A shirt dress made sharper. A practical coat worn over an easy column. A utility shirt that looks cleaner because the rest of the outfit stays quiet. A long neutral skirt with a simple top. A softer leather piece. A white shirt and white jean combination that feels minimal because the proportions are controlled. All of that tells you the same thing. Minimalism in 2026 does not want to look fragile. It wants to look capable. That is why utility matters here. Not because fashion suddenly became functional in a literal sense, but because the mood of functionality makes the clothes feel more believable, more urban, and more confident. And I think that is especially useful for women who love elegant dressing but do not want to feel trapped inside it. Because this version of minimalism gives you more freedom. The outfit can still be refined, still very clean, still expensive looking, but it can also hold a little dryness, a little ease, a little practicality, and that is often exactly what stops the outfit from feeling too polished in an old-fashioned way. So again, the lesson is not to add more, it is to choose pieces that already carry a stronger sense of purpose. A shirt that has presence, a trouser that falls properly, a coat that grounds the whole look, a cleaner flat shoe, a piece of leather, a touch of denim. A utility line used in a quieter, more elegant way. That is enough to modernize the wardrobe very quickly. Because now minimalism is not just about looking refined, it is also about looking competent, settled, and real. And that may be one of the most modern things about it. So, the fourth shift is that minimalism in 2026 is borrowing much more from utility and real life. Not to become casual, but to become more believable, more grounded, and much easier to wear with confidence. So when I step back and look at all of this together, the message of summer 2026 feels surprisingly clear. Minimalism is absolutely still here, but it is no longer the old version. It is softer, longer, more fluid, more intentional, a little more sensual, and much more connected to real life. It still loves restraint, it still loves a calm palette, it still loves simplicity, but now it wants movement instead of stiffness, a point of view instead of emptiness, a little body awareness instead of distance, and a little practicality instead of perfection. That is why some minimalist outfits suddenly look so modern now, while others, even with beautiful basics, can start to feel slightly flat. Because the question is no longer just whether the outfit is simple. The real question is, does it have enough softness, enough line, enough intention, enough life inside it? That is the new standard, and once you see that, it becomes much easier to understand what minimalism actually means in 2026. Not less clothing, not less personality, but a calmer and more intelligent way of dressing.